Story appears ordinary till you see the core side of it.
And what you're looking for is the story behind the news.
We bring it to you from Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria.
Giving you all sides and political stories round the clock.
Every detail from the start line to the final whistle.
CoreTV News, expanding your view.
Hello there and welcome to the News at 7 with me, Sabena Izuku. The police authorities have set up an election security planning and monitoring unit as part of efforts to strengthen the security of electoral processes. The unit, according to a police statement, is to be headed by a seasoned commissioner in the operations department. The police authorities expect the new formation to, among others, develop frameworks and strategies for election security. Other duties include conducting election security threat assessment, coordinating election security training, and implementing guidelines for police officers on election duties. Former Vice President and Chieftain of the All Progressive Congress, Atiku Abubakar, insists that there is no provision for automatic presidential tickets in the party. He argued that those pushing for it are people who are afraid of testing their popularity among party members. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar spoke with journalists on the sidelines of a political meeting in Abuja.
It is not going to be possible. It's not going to be so. I bet you it's not going to be. And even the last, the last convention, only the offices that were not contested were not up for elections. The offices that were contested, elections were held. They took place, and we stayed there. You see that we stayed there throughout the night, until the following day, until the votes were counted and results announced. I have already said that there is nothing like automatic ticket, and those people who are asking for automatic ticket are definitely scared of a contest, because they might have been coming from a background or a political background that did not know contest before. And you know, the APC is an amalgamation of a number of political parties that came together, relinquished their identity into APC. So, but APC, as currently constituted, cannot escape an elective, primaries. There has to be. On what basis are you going to say it is automatic? There is no zoning. There is no allocation, and as they do in PDP, there is nothing like that. So on what basis?
Contrary to the provision of the Nigerian electoral law, which stipulates that election campaigns should commence 90 days to the date of polls, major political parties have continued to hold rallies in different parts of the country. On the other hand, the Independent National Electoral Commission has continued to feign ignorance of the infraction, which has precipitated tension in the polity. Olajumoke Olatunji looks at the position of the law in this report.
Section 99, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended stipulates, for the purpose of this act, the period of campaigning in public by every political party shall commence 90 days before polling day and end 24 hours prior to that day. This law was designed to ensure that elected office holders who are still in office but with plans to return to office will not fritter away their official time campaigning to be re-elected. The draftsmen of the act were no doubt aware that electioneering campaign in Nigeria is always a big deal, affecting every facet of national life. Once it starts, electioneering campaigns in Nigeria is time-consuming and have the capacity to keep everything else at bay. But there have been disagreements as to what exactly a political campaign is. The largely subjective and varied definitions of political campaigns have been maximally exploited by the politicians.
Sad thing about the entire process is the silence of INEC, who has the constitutional right to punish any offender, or even to make a pronouncement asking them to stop the campaign. before the whistle is blown. And that silence, portends grave danger to the electoral process in 2015, because this umpire must be seen to be independent, must be seen to use the sledgehammer in the face of breaches that are being committed all over the place by politicians.
The next general elections in the country have been scheduled for early next year, and the February 14 and 28, 2015 dates set for the general elections. Campaigns are not supposed to start until October. The major political parties, particularly the ruling People's Democratic Party and the opposition All Progressives Congress, have wantonly breached the said provisions of the Electoral Act.
It is actually a sabotage of the law of the land, and it is a way by which our leaders become lawless. I mean, to show to the world that they are really not the kind of leaders that the world over think that they are. They are lawless. They disobey their own laws. Hypocrisy is superlative at the side of the government, and the tendency to be lawless is being displayed by that exhibition of lawlessness.
The law about 90 days, the ban on campaign until 90 days to election, is not explicit. For example, that law needs to specify what constitutes a campaign. If I put my name on a poster and say 2015, here I come, will that constitute campaign in the face of the law? So we need to take a second look at that law and spell out in clear details what constitutes a campaign 90 days before election. So somebody will, so if INEC tries to convict somebody now, that person may just say that, look, I am only advertising myself. I have not said I'm contesting for any election.
Electioneering campaigns are limited to a period within which a political party has an opportunity to sell itself or to tell the electorate how far it has met its electoral premises and to canvass for the votes of the electorate. Olajumoke Olatuji, CoreTV News, Lagos.
The spokesman of the Lagos chapter of the People's Democratic Party, Taofeek Ganiyu, has assured that Lagosians will get a free, fair and credible primaries in the course of choosing the party's governorship candidate. The primaries will produce the party's flag bearer in the 2015 governorship election.
Lagosians should be expecting the best material to be their governor from PDP. For us in PDP, we are expecting that the process will be free, fair and credible enough so that at the end of the day, losers will see themselves as actual losers. The winner will see himself as lucky to have won, and everybody will be able to work together.
Ahead of the 2015 general elections, Nigerian youths have been advised not to allow themselves to be used as political thugs by politicians during the electioneering process. A youth group advocates for collective transformation, ACT Act, said it is time for the youth to take up their decisive role in nation building. At the inauguration of the Osun State chapter of the Advocates for Collective Transformation in Osogbo, the state capital, the group says one of its primary aims is to ensure that the best candidates occupy political offices through electoral process.
Come together to make sure that we put the right candidates in government offices, people that will do well by the people, for the people, and will make the necessary change.
If truly, like I keep on saying, the youth are the future of this country, our leaders should please start involving the youth. How do we learn if you're not carried along? If they want delegates for any primaries or any general election, they should please give some quota to the youth so that we start learning how to take over from there.
Actors also advocating the inclusion of youths in all levels of governance and also support masses-based governments. It therefore wants Nigerian leaders to start giving the youths the needed encouragement and training for the leadership position. We'll take a short break, and when we return, there'll be more stories for you. Stay with us.
There is an Ebola virus epidemic in some West African countries. The Nigerian government wants you to be aware and watch out against the spread of Ebola in your community. Help keep our country safe and watch out for severe cases of fever, headaches, diarrhea, chest and abdominal pain, sore throat, cough, red eyes, and bleeding from the eyes, ears, and nose, especially when these symptoms are found in persons coming into Nigeria from other West African countries. Protect yourself. Wash your hands regularly with soap and running water, or use a hand sanitizer. Avoid contact with the blood, urine, feces, or saliva of animals like bats, monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees, or infected persons. The Ebola virus is deadly. Don't catch it. Don't spread it. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
Welcome back to the News at 7. The management and students of the Federal Polytechnic Ado-Ekiti say they have no hand in the protests by residents of the Aba-Erifun community in the Ekiti state capital, which degenerated into an attack on the convoy of legal luminary Afe Babalola. The rector of this institution, Taiwo Akonde, while reacting to the protests and attack, says it was not his students that protested over poor power supply and subsequently attacked Afe Babalola.
On the instigation of the Landlords Association of Aba-Erifun, initiated the protest. Many of these protesters were not students of the Polytechnic. And to buttress this, when the executive of the students union were alerted, because nobody on campus even knew there was a problem, but when they were alerted and they went near with officials of our Student Affairs Division, they could not recognize any of the protesters, neither could the protesters recognize them.
President of the Student Union of the school, Ajibola Oladapo, says the attack is unwarranted as the students have no reason to protest over power supply or attack Afe Babalola.
Commiserate with our father, an incomparable icon and pioneer of Ekiti State, Are Afe Babalola, son, on the unfortunate attack on his convoy at Aba-Erifun. It is worthy to know that the management of our institution, which also suffers from the same fate, have been doing all that is humanly possible to provide this basic necessity through the use of several generators on the Polytechnic campus. We deeply appreciate this, and thus we had no cause to complain of lack of power supply or water on the campus, nor go on a demonstration over sale.
The protest and attack on Afe Babalola and his university was said to have been as a result of poor power supply to Aba-Erifun, a neighborhood to the Afe Babalola University, while they say the university enjoys uninterrupted power supply. An army court-martial has sentenced 12 soldiers to death or for inciting mutiny during the ongoing war against insurgency. The soldiers were said to be the ringleaders of the troops who fired at the general officer commanding GOC of 7th Division, Major General Abubakar Mohammed, during a mutiny in Maiduguri. 18 soldiers stood trial on a 6-count charge, but 12 were found guilty of mutiny and given the death sentence.
10 NA of the 65-6912 Private Chocho Jeremiah for count 6. You are reprimanded. IHL means imprisonment with hard labor. 28 days imprisonment with hard labor. And for count 6, you are reprimanded. And say, warning for you. Sit down. 03NA/53/816, Last Corporal Stephen Clement, for count 3. You were found guilty and you are therefore sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. But for count 4, mutiny, 2003 NA/53/816, Last Corporal Stephen Clement, you were found guilty for mutiny, therefore sentenced to death by firing squad. These findings and sentences are subject to confirmation. May God have mercy on you.
3 days after a fighter jet on an operation against the Boko Haram disappeared in the northeast, Nigerian Air Force authorities have ruled out sabotage. The Chief of Air Staff, Adeshola Amosu, dropped these hints to the journalists on the sidelines of a meeting with President Goodluck Jonathan in Abuja. He, however, says the military has a fair idea of the whereabouts of the jet that went missing during an operation against the Boko Haram insurgents.
One of our Alpha jets went on a routine operational mission in the northeast. On the return, they lost contact with the control tower. That made us to immediately initiate search. The weather is not being helpful. The citizens are very helpful. We're getting some good information, but you know, in the aviation, we have specific information that we ought to have to make the search easy. But the information we're getting from the citizens, good, but not sufficient, good enough for us to pinpoint the area of, define the area of search. But we have an idea of where the aircraft could be. Don't forget, it's the open Sahel. It looks, some people may think it's easy, but in the open Sahel, sometimes it's even very challenging. A human being standing may look like a tree. And again, the area we're talking about is we have operations going on there. You have limitations as to how low you can go to conduct the search. But we have the platforms. But I'm hopeful that before the end of the day, before the end of the week, we should be able to provide positive information as to the location and then the pilots. But one thing is clear, that whatever problem they had, an ejection was contemplated. It is my hope that the pilots are still alive.
But sir, do you suspect any sabotage or foul?
Sabotage, no, because it's a distance of just from Maiduguri to Jola. We're in full control of the airspace. But don't forget, when you lose radio signal becomes challenging. There are so many possibilities, but we're working on it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The African Center for Human Rights and Humanitarian Services has called on the federal government to take tougher actions to arrest the Boko Haram insurgents in the northeastern region of the country. The center says the crisis had led to mass rural-urban migration in the affected states. The body says many of the towns and villages in Borno State have been deserted as insurgents had left, many fleeing into Maiduguri with its attendant pressure on available infrastructure. Addressing journalists in Maiduguri, the chairman of the group, Saina Buba, lamented that recent happenings in the northeast had aggravated human rights and abuses, mass poverty, starvation, breakdown of unity among families, breakdown of law and order, extrajudicial killings, and total displacement of families. Buba wondered why the committee set up by President Goodluck Jonathan had so far collected 60 billion naira on how to address the terror activities in the region had yet to visit Borno State, adding that many families had been uprooted from their homes. The defense authorities want Nigerians to show more support for troops engaged in the ongoing war against the Boko Haram insurgents in the northeast. Minister of State for Defense Musiliu Obanikoro says at the launch of Support Our Troops Foundation in Abuja that the soldiers deserve appreciation, and maintain that the words of solidarity and prayers on the social media would act as morale booster for troops as they confront insurgents on the battlefield.
We all have a part to play. You say a word of appreciation to our troops today, you can say a word of prayer for them as well. You can help them with information. Your expression of faith in their ability to defeat our common enemy is a morale booster that only you can provide. Those of us active in the media, particularly social media, do not talk down or ridicule the great efforts that our troops are making to protect and defend our country, even at the risk of their lives.
And away from security matters over to crime matters, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has arrested 2 suspected fraudsters for allegedly swindling a foreign investor of $7.9 million. The EFCC spokesman Wilson Ujaren says Victor Wadiale and Captain Inanji Everest were arrested separately in connection with the scam. The commission described the Wadiale as the arrowhead of the international syndicate, with expertise in defrauding the international businessmen seeking investment opportunities in Nigeria. He allegedly invited the businessman from the Middle East to invest in Nigeria's oil sector using a fake identity. The EFCC says on receiving the investor at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, he flew him in a helicopter to a destination where he reportedly met a certain Mr. Grant, another member of the syndicate, who assured him of the credibility of the business arrangement. The investor then began remitting money in foreign currency into Wadiale's offshore account, where they are laundered into various bank accounts around the globe. The commission said $1.2 million was traced to the United Kingdom account of Captain Inanji Everest, a member of Udwadi Ali's syndicate. It added that 1.5 million naira, 1.2 million naira, 894 pounds sterling, and $275 were traced to Udwadi Ali's account with one of the new generation banks in Nigeria. The course of the principal suspect was said to have denied meeting or transacting any business with a foreign investor, but he was identified by a business associate of the investor who led the EFCC operators to his private residence in Festac Town, Lagos. The EFCC says the 2 suspects will soon be charged to court. The nations has declared that the United Nations has declared that more than $1 billion is needed to fight the West African Ebola outbreak, which has recorded a 10-fold increase in the past month. The United Nations Ebola Coordinator, David Nabarro, made the announcement as the World Health Organization described the health crisis as unparalleled in modern times. It has killed 2,461 people this year, half of 4,985 infected by the virus, the global health body says. There has been criticism of the slow international response to the epidemic. The U.S. president is to announce plans to send 3,000 troops to Liberia, one of the countries worst affected by the outbreak, to help fight the virus. It is understood that the U.S. military will oversee the building new treatment centers and help train medical staff. The medical charity Medecins Sans Frontieres, MSF, called on other countries to follow the U.S.-led as the response to the outbreak continued to fall dangerously behind. The outbreak began in Guinea before spreading to its neighbors, Sierra Leone and Liberia. Nigeria and Senegal have reported some cases, but seem to have contained the transmission of the virus. Now, ECOWAS Commission is seeking multilateral support for health facilities and research to check the Ebola virus disease in West Africa. It also wants international partners to commit funds to regional solidarity and find the disease. The president of the commission, Kadri Ouedraogo, made the appeal at the opening of the 10th annual coordination meeting of ECOWAS and its development partners in Abuja. ECOWAS also welcomed the coordinated approach adopted by the World Health Organization, but warned against taking steps that would affect the free movement in the region.
Not to close their borders, not to isolate the affected countries, because this will be counterproductive, and we should cultivate the spirit of solidarity. We should open the border, but be very cautious in terms of surveillance. And the ministers of health have indeed made a recommendation that we have disseminated to all member states on measures to be taken by every ECOWAS member states. in order to control the epidemic, to control the passengers at the exit point and at the entry point to avoid contamination. And also, they have proposed the creation of humanitarian corridors, which we are now implementing. That is to open up all affected countries to regular economic trade flow. And we are working with all ECOWAS member states to establish these corridors. That is, for each country, there should be a designated land entry point, air entry point, and maritime entry point.
And that's it at the news at 7. Do join us on our primetime news at 9:45 p.m. I am Sabena Izuku, and thank you very much indeed for watching.